Another mass shooting, this one inside First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas, a tiny town of several hundred.
The reaction to the shooting from the alt-left was, of course, completely predictable.
Don't worry, everybody. It was a white man who slaughtered half of the church in Texas. That means everything's just fine. No terrorism. Sutherland Springs is in rural Texas. These were all likely 45 voters. This is karma in action. Good riddance.
Oh, and the children who died?
You gotta crack eggs to make an omelette. Murdered victims were in a church. If prayers did anything, they'd be alive. You worthless sack of shit.
Authorities say Devin Patrick Kelly was dressed in full combat gear and carrying an assault rifle.
Kelly here in this LinkedIn photo appears to have anger issues. After serving a year in prison following a court-martial for an assault on his spouse and 11-month-old child, Kelly received a bad conduct discharge from the Air Force in 2014. A family member telling ABC News last night that the former volunteer at Vacation Bible School is now an atheist who doesn't like church. And a former classmate tells ABC News he hated religious people.
He had received a bad conduct discharge from the Air Force and wasn't supposed to have a gun.
26-year-old Devin Patrick Kelly parked his car at the gas station, crossed the street, and opened fire with a sporting-type rifle on worshipers outside the church, killing 2 before entering the church, where he slaughtered 23 others. Another victim died at the hospital. 20 others were injured in the attack. The victims ranged in age from 5 to 72.
As he left, Kelly was stopped by a neighbor with a gun and then chased in his car by that neighbor and Johnny Logendorf.
It was a pretty hot pursuit, very fast, but it ended quickly, which was good.
Kelly eventually crashed his SUV on a country road. Law enforcement found him dead with a gunshot wound.
At this time, we don't know if it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound or if he was shot by our local resident.
There's so many families who've lost family members. Fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters. The tragedy, of course, is worsened by the fact that it occurred in a church, a place of worship, where these people were innocently gunned down.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott condemning the senseless violence and comforting the mourning.
Our hearts are broken.
On tour in Asia, President Trump also called the attack an act of evil. And in Texas, the small town is grieving.
Just thinking about my own kids. It could have been us.
Could have been our kids.
It could have been 5 minutes down the road.
It could have been our kids, so it does hit you hard.
Among the many killed, 14-year-old Annabelle Renee Pomeroy. Her father, the church pastor, was out of town at the time of the shooting. Others stood firm on their faith.
Anyone in that church that died, we know that they're in the presence of our Lord Jesus Christ right now.
So what do we know about the motive at this point? The gunman was a committed atheist who bothered his friends on Facebook by incessantly calling Christians stupid. And that doesn't mean all atheists bear responsibility. But what it does mean is that this could have been an anti-Christian hate crime. Imagine this, an Islamophobe relentlessly posts on Facebook about how stupid Muslims are, then goes and shoots up a mosque, massacring 26 Muslims. Would the media say his motive was a mystery? No. If it was just a personal dispute, why try to slaughter everyone in the church? If they come out and claim it had nothing to do with his hatred of Christians, it's gonna look very odd.
Disney Channel will soon break new ground by introducing its first LGBTQ storyline. Andy Mack has proven to be a wildly popular show among kids 6 to 14 years old. It revolves around a soon-to-be 13-year-old girl named Andy and her 2 best friends, Cyrus and Buffy. In the season premiere, we'll find out Andy and Cyrus are both falling for the same boy. It'll be a story arc that continues to develop in later episodes. Disney Channel reached out to the LGBTQ community for help developing the Andy Mack storyline. One of the groups it worked with was GLAAD, whose president and CEO, Sarah Kate Ellis, said, quote, "Television reflects the real-life world, and today that includes LGBTQ youth who deserve to see their lives depicted on their favorite shows."
Kentucky Republican Senator Rand Paul is recovering after suffering an assault in his home Friday. A senior advisor to the senator says he has 5 broken ribs after an assailant blindsided him. He added that the nature of the internal damage could lead to life-threatening injuries. The alleged attacker, Rene Boucher, is charged with 4th-degree assault. Police confirmed that Boucher and Paul know each other. Local news reported they are neighbors who've been engaged in an ongoing feud.
It's a breathtaking, horrifying, jaw-dropping moment. A man on the street walks up to a woman on the street, kicks out her leg, knocks her out cold, and walks away. The next moments may be more disturbing. One young man walks up, looks at her motionless body, pulls out his phone, takes a video. The next 4 teens do the same, take cell phone videos. First I received the video, then disturbing texts from a source. They didn't help her. They took what looks like her phone while she's out cold. You can actually see one of the teens bending down and picking something up. There's more. The source saying nobody called 911 to help her. And a shocking revelation, the source says they actually come back. A kid lays beside her and takes a selfie. And finally, from a source close to the investigation, she was knocked out cold, just laid there until she regained consciousness.
Insys Therapeutics is at the center of an alleged opioid kickback scheme in which doctors were bribed to prescribe a cancer painkiller to non-cancer patients. Today, federal authorities in Phoenix arrested the billionaire founder and majority owner of the company, John Kapoor. He's the most prominent pharmaceutical executive to be criminally charged in the opioid crisis after a lengthy investigation by federal prosecutors in Boston.
2 men in India have been sentenced to life in prison after being convicted of raping their 10-year-old niece. A fast-track court in the northwestern city of Chandigarh handed down the sentences on November 2nd. The case made international headlines earlier this year after India's Supreme Court denied the girl permission to get an abortion, saying the procedure was too risky health-wise. She was 32 weeks pregnant at the time. Under Indian law, abortion is only permitted until a fetus is 20 weeks old. Police first arrested one of the uncles after the girl told them he had repeatedly raped her. However, authorities continued to look for another suspect after his DNA did not match that of the girl's baby. Last month, a second uncle was charged with rape following forensic tests, which revealed he had fathered the child.
A historic Virginia church where George Washington worshipped has announced it will remove a plaque honoring our first president.
That's right. The church issuing this statement explaining the plaques in our sanctuary make some in our presence feel unsafe or unwelcome. Some visitors and guests who worship with us choose not to return.
Use Amazon Key.
Amazon's Cheerful Video presents the new Amazon Key program as a simple, convenient way to have your packages dropped off inside your home. Here's how it works. For $249, you buy a special smart door lock along with an in-home wireless camera aimed at the door. When the delivery driver arrives, Amazon gets a notification. The company then activates the camera and unlocks the door remotely, so the driver can open your door and put your package inside. He then steps outside and asks Amazon to relock the door. You can watch the delivery happen live or view a video sent later. Convenient in theory, sure, but on Twitter, one user called it a hilariously bad idea. Another asked, convenient or too creepy? And a third said tongue-in-cheek, what could possibly go wrong? Cybersecurity expert John Cilio says, hacking.
The biggest risk is the hackers who get a hold of the database of door codes. You know, quite literally, if they can hack the NSA, they can hack a database of entry codes into an entire block's worth of homes.
Sergeant Bo Bergdahl arrived in court facing a possible life sentence and left demoted to a disgraced buck private, his Army career over. But he's a free man. In June of 2009, Bergdahl walked off his war zone post in Afghanistan. He carried nothing to protect him but a compass and a Jason Bourne delusion. Within hours, the Taliban had him. Bergdahl spent 5 years living as a captive in a metal cage before President Obama negotiated his release. Prosecutors wanted him to serve a 14-year sentence. Bergdahl, now 31, told the Sunday Times he realizes many Americans want him executed.
The people who want to hang me, you're never going to convince those people.
One of those people is his commander-in-chief. This was then candidate Trump.
This dirty, rotten traitor. 30 years ago, he would have been shot.
Judge Colonel Jeffrey Nance imposed his sentence without explanation, but said he'd weigh the president's remarks in Bergdahl's favor. Bergdahl's most serious charge was endangering U.S. troops searching for him, like Master Sergeant Mark Allen. Taliban forces shot Allen in the head. He'll never walk or talk again.
Personally, I wanted to see life in prison.
Master-at-Arms Senior Chief Mike Toussaint also looked for Bergdahl. Taliban forces killed his service dog, Remco.
I'm utterly disgusted. As an American, as somebody that served with honor and distinction, I truly believe the punishment does not even come close to fitting the crime.
California is headed for a crisis. Decades of mismanagement and lack of leadership have turned the once golden state into a state of disaster. The cost of living is skyrocketing. 6 of the 7 most unaffordable cities in the U.S. are in California. For the same price as living in San Francisco, you could afford to buy 2 new cars every year. But those high costs aren't being covered by high-paying jobs, as the state's unemployment rate soars to 11%. Not even the highest taxes in the nation can keep the state from breaking under more than $1.3 trillion in debt. And instead of fixing the state's roads or keeping dams like Oroville from collapsing, more than $30 billion a year, over 3/4 of all taxpayer dollars, is spent supporting illegal aliens. That includes in-state tuition, with universities even offering illegals $25 million in financial aid. Nearly 1 million illegal aliens are now carrying California driver's licenses, and in counties like LA, where there are 144% more registered voters than residents of voting age, many fear that migrants are voting illegally. Americans are also paying nearly $1 billion a year so that illegals can have auto insurance. We're paying billions more in welfare and low-cost housing in a state where not even legal residents can find a place to live. So exactly what rights do people who are here illegally have? And who gave them to them? Well, Governor Jerry Brown just agreed to protect illegals from deportation, blocking state police from pursuing these criminals. Because leaders like Jerry Brown, Maxine Waters, Kevin DeLeon, and Dianne Feinstein don't consider them illegal. Instead, Governor Brown calls them Californians. But real, law-abiding Californians can't afford to bear these massive costs much longer.